Hey Rod, hey everybody else. Welcome to another Latin stream. Happy Friday. Enjoy some hot chocolate. It's a little too warm for hot chocolate, but only just. It's actually been a very pleasant week temperature-wise. But I just read that George II, King George II, that is, would have hot chocolate every morning with breakfast. So there's your little interesting fact for the day. Anyway, I hope everybody had a good week. Thanks for joining me. I'm gonna do some Latin today. Last time we learned participles, which the importance of which cannot be overestimated. They're super important. They will be used in many, many constructions, simply because Latin prefers them over conjugating verbs. That's the gist of the reasoning. For the rest of the lessons in this book, I think we said there were like 13 more. They'll be about adverbial constructions, irregular verbs, and a few other subjunctive constructions. So hopefully nothing too complicated. Yeah. Unfortunately, he died. And the book that I'm reading, which is a biography of Benjamin Franklin, warranted his death due to some digestive issues that may have been caused by an unhealthy diet. Oops. But you're not wrong. Hot chocolate is not the solution to everything, including death. Yes, I realized that my statement sounded like unrelated a little bit, but there was the context. All right. So today we're definitely going to discuss Volo, Nolo, and Malo. Don't worry if you hear the cat in the background. It's just dinner time, so he's just being loud. Is fine. Volo, Nolo, and Malo are a set of irregular verbs that are all formed on the same pattern, hence why they are taught together. They're a lot of fun to say, too. This section will also cover the Ablative Absolute, which is a super, super important Latin construction. Especially when you're reading Caesar, which is what this book is getting us ready to do. It does kind of sound like a new South Wales name. But by the end of the day, we will be able to translate this phrase, Deo volente, because we are both learning Ablative Absolute and Volo, and that one phrase uses both of them. So, Wulu Mulu. Ah, yeah, that sounds very similar. All right, so the principal parts are not listed here. That would make it too easy, so I guess I'll have to. That does mean God willing. So, Wolo, Wele, Wolui, Nolo, Nole, Nolui, and Malo, Male, Malui are the principal parts for Volo, Nolo, and Malo. They're super fun, and as you can probably see, they are super irregular, with the LE instead of the RE. There's no fourth principal part. You cannot use these verbs in the passive. This kind of to want, to wish cannot be passive. You cannot be wanted in this way. or be not wanted, nolo, or be more wanted, malo. And as you see here, so volo means to wish, to want, to be willing. Nolo means to not want, to not wish, to not be willing. So it is really just a portmanteau of ne and volo, nolo. And the forms are formed as such. And malo, to want more, or to prefer, because you want something more than something else, you prefer something, is a portmanteau of magis and volo, ma-lo. Right? Easy. They'd have a different phrase for that, Roz, if you go and commit a bunch of crimes. They'd probably just say kill on sight. They'd put you on the prescription list. All right. So there's going to be a lot of irregulars, and it looks like they're just going to give them to you in a chart and not here. So, I guess go learn them. All right, that's a little less than helpful for a lesson, but it will make it go very quickly. Look at the chart. Extremely dangerous kill on sight. That sounds like Romans. All right, these verbs, nolo, volo, and malo, are usually followed by an infinitive. So they wish to come, volunt venere. They want their friends to come, volunt amigos venere. Which is exactly what the English does. I don't want to do something. I prefer to do something. It just all uses the infinitive. One Latin phrase, another biblical Latin phrase is nole tangere, don't touch, which has to do with the wounds in Christ, nole tangere. Or maybe it has to do with when Mary Magdalene saw him after the resurrection and he said, "Don't touch me." Whichever the case, it's about Jesus in a very particular way. All right, so let's read this sentence here that they gave us. Oh, we're switching. We are done talking about Volo, Nolo, and Malo. We are now talking about the ablative. They really don't want to tell you anything about Volo, Nolo, and Malo. Okay, fine. We're not going to either. We're just going to go to the Ablative Absolute. Magistro laudante omnes puere diligenter laborant. All right. So, magistro is an ablative. Laudante is an ablative present participle. Okay? So those aren't our subject. Pueri, that's a nominative plural. That's our subject. Omnes, modifying boys, pueri. So all the boys laborant, work diligently, diligenter. Okay. So what are these ablatives doing? It's not means, it's not, what is it? It's called an ablative absolute. It is a noun and a participle in the ablative case that provide more information about the sentence. So you can use it causal, you can use it temporal, you can use it concessive. The translationese way of saying it is with the teacher praising, all the boys work diligently. But you can say because the teacher praises, all the boys work diligently. Not so bad. Here's a phrase you'll see a lot. Caesare ducente, nemo progredi timet, with Caesar leading, because Caesar leads, if Caesar leads, no one fears to step forward, to advance. All right, nice. His rebus cognitis milites fugerent. So the soldiers fled. Subject, verb, and then we've got these ablative nouns and participles. So with these things having been known, once they were known, after they were known, the soldiers fled. I know, the boys respond well to positive feedback. Latin makes sense. Proilio commisso multi vulneri sunt. So many were wounded, proileo kimisso, after the battle had begun, with the battle having begun. Since the battle had begun, many were wounded. Right? It all makes sense. Why? Because Latin loves the participles. That's all I can say. So, how does he describe it? One of the fundamental ablative relations is expressed in English by the preposition with. That makes sense. A lot of times, with is how we translate the ablative in a normal way. In each of the sentences above, we have a noun and a participle in the ablative, and the translation shows attendant circumstance. For example, in the first sentence, the circumstance that accompanies the diligent labor of the boys is the praise of the teacher. That's the circumstance of the main verb. Clearly a with relation, and the ablative is the case to use. Okay. That sense is slightly ambiguous. Is it more because or after? Yes. That is, in fact, one of the beautiful things about using the word sense in your translation. It can either be causal or temporal, and then you don't have to decide if you're not sure. Usually, I would say sense should be used causally. But if you're not quite clear, maybe this is a temporal sequence, but maybe it's the cause. Sense kind of gives you the wiggle room. Okay. If you know for sure it's X happened and then temporally X happened, and not this was the cause of this, then of course use after or when this happens, blah, blah, blah. But if you don't know, sense. All right. So the other important note is the ablative and the participle are absolutely independent grammatically of the rest of the sentence. You could totally take it out and still translate the Latin and have it make sense. If we were to express the thought in English in a similar way, we'd use the nominative absolute. English has a nominative absolute. Did you know that? Fun fact. Nobody knows that it's called the nominative absolute, and nobody uses it. Probably properly. But English has a nominative absolute. So, fun fact. I've done neat tricks with grammar to avoid expressing something I can't be sure of, like avoiding awkward pronouns. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you want to use the language to your advantage, and you want to be 100% accurate. Nominative absolute. So that would be a pre-constitutional king. I do like it. Yeah. Alright. I think it's a nominal absolute. Alright. This form of expression is extremely common in Latin and extremely rare in English. So we must not, as a rule, employ the English absolute to translate the ablative absolute, just because it sounds funky in English. It is actually used, I believe, in the Second Amendment of the Constitution. It is one of the most famous examples of an absolute construction in English, which is why it's then, therefore, this point of debate, because it's the part of a militia being necessary to, I can't get the exact language right, but Punch is nodding, so I'm getting close enough. A militia being necessary for the security, blah, 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 something like that. That is a nominative absolute. And the debate comes with, well, is this phrase causal, temporal? Does it mean because such a thing is necessary, or if such a thing is necessary, or when such a thing is necessary? And that is the debate, because it is a nominative absolute, and it can mean any of those things. Thanks, English. Can you quote the text of it for the... Oh, okay. I did. At least quoted enough of it to give you the idea. An ablative absolute is that same king being blamed for the country's problems and being removed from his position in order to solve them. No worries. And it's like I'm explaining something, and then I check the chat, and I'm like, oh, wait, I did. All right. Attendant circumstance may be one of time, again, temporal, when something happens after such and such happened. Don't torture the cat. One of cause, sense, because. One of concession. See, my cat's running away because Punch was torturing the cat. He was not actually torturing the cat. He was playing with the cat. Concession, although such and such is the case. And condition, if such and such is the case. In each case, try to discover the precise relation and translate it clearly, but sometimes you don't know because you are not the author. So sometimes it is difficult to tell which of the things it's supposed to be. So we just say, with such and such being such and such. And the reader then has to figure it out, just passing the buck on to the next interpreter. When you torture the cat or after you torture the cat runs away. Fudgy fudge, fudgy fudge. He's getting dinner. He doesn't care. All right, ablative absolute. The ablative of a noun or pronoun with a present or a perfect participle in agreement is used to express attendant circumstance. All right, now we have a very important note here. So it's noun plus participle in the ablative. Easy peasy. The one small problem with the Latin language, the only problem that the Latin language has, is the verb to be, sum esse fui futurus, has no present participle. So if you want to say in an ablative absolute construction that something is something, you cannot use a verb. So you instead must only use two nouns in the ablative, which can be confusing. So let's give these couple examples here. Te duce, with you being the leader, because you are the leader, when you are the leader, if you are the leader, you can do what you want. Patre infermo, with the... I'm not sure how much of Fudge is getting here. Okay, go eat your dinner, Fudgy. Roz says hi, Fudge. Fudge is eating his food, but I'm sure he would say hi otherwise. Yeah, there he was on the screen. Oh my goodness, what a weirdo. Alright. Patre infermo. When my father is weak, because my father is weak. If my father is weak, I have to take out the garbage or whatever it is that you have to do when your father is weak. All right. Be careful not to put in the ablative absolute or noun and participle that form the subject or the object. If you are the subject nominative or the direct object, you should not be in an ablative absolute. The ablative absolute is extra information, right? Not related to the subject or the direct object. If you are the subject, just use a participle to explain the extra information. If you're the direct object, just use a participle to explain the extra information. Bless you, Punch. If you are an attendant circumstance, then you go in the ablative. So here, Galli a Caesari victi domum reverterant. The Gauls returned home, having been conquered by Caesar. Victi in the nominative plural, modifying Galli. Right? You don't have to say, with the Gauls having been conquered, they return home. Right? No. Just put it in the participle that it belongs in. Da-da-da. Only deponent verbs have a perfect active participle. So therefore, 90% of ablative absolutes use the perfect passive participle. And Latin is okay with that because Latin loves the passive. English is not okay with that because English hates the passive and wants to kill it. I don't know why, but it does. And so a lot of times when you're translating the perfect passive participle in an ablative absolute, you should make the phrase into an active one. So, if we wish to say Caesar having conquered the Gauls, we have to change the voice and say the Gauls having been conquered by Caesar, right? We have to turn, if we're going from English to Latin, we have to turn the active to passive. If we're going from Latin to English, we generally turn the passive into active. All right, let's look at a couple quick things here. So the first one is just some forms of Nolo, Volo, and Malo. Mawis, you want more. Non-wis, you do not want. Waltis, y'all want. Nolumus, we do not want. So all present tense here, and it shows you the irregularities, especially Nolo. Malo and Volo are closer in pattern. Nolo sometimes becomes non-wis or non-voltus, I believe. Because it's made from non plus Volo, and so sometimes the forms didn't change. It just stayed non plus verb. Go figure. English hates the passive. The passive is loved by Latin. Indeed it is. Alright. Speaking of, let's look at number 7 then. Caesare legiones hortato milites Paulo fortius pugnaverant. So we got all these ablatives in the front, followed by a comma. Guess what? That's an ablative absolute. Caesar in particular, and sometimes other Latin authors are very, very nice, and will put ablative absolute first in the sentence, and then editors will put a comma after it. So guess what? It's the ablative absolute. Milites is our subject, pugnaverunt is our main verb. The soldiers fought more strongly by a little, Paulo Fortius, with Caesar having urged the legions. So hortato is passive form, active in meaning, because it's a irregular deponent verb. So again, with Caesar having urged the legions, the soldiers fought a little more strongly. Hortato being a passive participle happens before the main verb. So you can say after Caesar had urged the legions, because Caesar had urged the legions. Anything like that. All right. Number 10. Concilio convocato principes ita responderant. So again, ablative absolute to start. And then the leaders thus responded, blah, blah, blah. We don't get the response. But concilio convocato, with the council having been called, perfect passive participle. So again, after the council was called, I don't know how to make it active at this point because I don't know who's summoning the council. I guess Caesar, we can guess. So you do have to be careful if you're going to try to make it really good English, because you have to supply the subject, and if the subject isn't clear, you don't want to make assumptions about what's going on. I'm very comfortable with Latinese, so it doesn't bother me. But some people, it really gets under their nerves. All right, let's do fio real quick and the subjunctive of result, i.e. the result clause, which is, at least in my generation of humor phrase, sometimes called the yo mama clause, because your mother is so blank with the result that something happens. That is the result clause. I would always have my students do an insult game for this one. You had to insult the other groups. All right. I do not condone that sort of humor, but it is, in fact, widely known and makes a good point. All right, so first of all, the irregular verb fio. Fio is a freaky little verb. We know the verb facio. Facio, facere, feci, factum. To make, to do. It's an important verb, gets used in a lot of compounds, like interficio, to kill. To thoroughly do someone, is to kill them, I guess. Interficio. Hey, Punch. They're called classical language. Oh, say classing ancient languages. I get it. We're super classy here. All right. So the verb fio is really only around in the present, future, and imperfect tenses. So the present system. And that reason being, in the present system, present, imperfect, and future, fio serves as the passive of facio. Because even though it looks active, its meaning is to be made or to happen, which is the passive of facio, because the facio means to make, and fio is to be made, then fio is the passive of facio. Fio, fieri, which is like Guy Fieri's last name. Factus sum. So in the perfect system, they're the same verb. In the present system, facio is active, fio is passive. It exists. I can't explain. I really just can't explain any more than that. As this points out, the compounds of facio that are super popular, you don't get compounds of fio. So to kill, interficio. To be killed is not interfio. It's really just fio. It happens. It comes about. This is very popular because of fiat, which is the subjunctive, so let it be done. And of course, in Genesis, lux fiat, let there be light. Let light exist. Let light happen. Let light be made. Lux fiat. But other than being freaky in that it has a passive meaning, the forms aren't that weird looking, so go look them up. Okay. Now, subjunctive of result. Result clause. Terror erat tantus ut omnes fugiret. The terror was so great, tantus, that, omnes, everybody fled. Omnes fugiret. Terror erat tantus ut non facile milite sese reciperant. The terror was so great, tantus, ut, that the soldiers did not easily recover themselves. Terror fecit ut omnes fugirent. Terror made it so that everybody fled. All right? Main clause, ut, subjunctive, subordinate clause. The subordinate clause is the result of that first part. They use ut in the positive, as it were, It was so great that. And if you want to say that not, you actually use ut ne for the result. So that's different than purpose. Sometimes people confuse purpose and result. Because sometimes, guess what? Your purpose, the thing that when you do a thing because of something, in order to accomplish something, that's your purpose, sometimes that's not the result you get. Sometimes you get a result that you did not intend. And that is part of the difference between the purpose clause and the result clause. The result is what actually happened, which is not so great sometimes. So it uses ut ne for the negative, whereas a purpose clause uses ne. Sorry, this is ut non instead of ne. All right. So result clauses are clauses of result introduced by ut or ut ne and have a verb in the subjunctive. They are the object of verbs of affecting or bringing about. I did this with the result that something happened. But very often you will see one of these size words or quality words, hence the your mom is so blank that. We saw that in the first two of these clauses, the tantus. The fear was so great that. So any words like tantus or sometimes ita, the terror was in such a way that. Those are your clues that you might be dealing with a result clause instead of a purpose clause. So he's going to walk us through more of these comparisons. There is a great similarity between purpose and result in the way that Latin expresses it. They both use ut for an affirmative, but purpose uses ne and result uses ut ne. Result clauses are often preceded by words such as tam, so, ita, such, seek, so, and other comparison words. So tam graviter vulneratus est ut caperenter. He was so severely wounded that he was captured. Right, that was the result. He got really injured, and they were able to capture him. That was the result of his injury. He was not able to escape. He was injured. Graviter vulneratus est ut caperator. Here's the purpose clause. He was wounded gravely in order to be captured. Right? So the people who went in were like, we want this guy, so we have to take him down so we can capture him. Right? The only difference is that Tom is the only difference between the result and the purpose clause in this instance. All right. So let's see another example or two, and that will do us for the day. Yeah, let's do description next time. Subjunctive of characteristic. Yeah, let's use a lot of fancy terms. We'll deal with that next time. Although, yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, the phrases are too fancy. We want to kind of break it down. We're getting close anyway. All right. All right, number 5. Sol facit ut omnia sint pulchra. The sun makes it so that all things are beautiful. That's the purpose of the sun, apparently. It's a weird sentence. But according to this author, the purpose of the sun is to make things beautiful. I'm not sure I agree. I'm not sure I disagree. But, so in this case, there's no tam or tantis or ita or seek, but it's this verb of making it, facio, and so it's what the purpose of the sun is doing. In this case, it's S-U-N. Sol invictus, indeed. Yes. Sol. The sun. In the sky. All right. Let's see. I don't want anything too hard here. All right, number 9. Number 9's a good one. You're totally right, Ross. The Son of God is much more effective at making people better than the physical sun. But here we are. Number 9. Homines erant tam audaces, ut nolo modo contenere possent. The men were so bold that they were able to be contained by no way, by no means. English, it would be plural, but singular in the Latin modo. All right. So again, what this is the result of their daring. They are so daring. What's the result? They can't be contained. They can't be held back. We have that Tom as our indicator that we are dealing, in fact, with the result of their daringness and not their purpose. Right? These guys are not sitting out and saying, we'd really like not to be restrained, so what should we do? Let's be super bold. No, they were super bold, and this is the natural consequence of their actions. Now I'm just thinking of the Star Trek episode. Are you having that problem too, Punch? Star Trek with the sun and the sun? We just watched a Star Trek episode of Rome. All right. And let's do one more. Number 10. Spatiam erat tam parvum ut milites tela iacere. Iacere, I love that verb. Non facile posen. The space was so small, tam parvum, that the result that the soldiers were not able, non-posent, to easily throw their weapons. Right? Roman spears, javelins, generally pretty large. So when they were backed in this corner, the result was that they couldn't throw their weapons. Right? Pretty easy. Well, let's go ahead and compare those two then with number 12. Because number 12, we have a purpose clause, and we know that because it's got a ne. Hoc proelium factum est, ne legati ad Caesaram mitterant. This battle was made so that the legates could not be sent to Caesar. So what was the purpose of the battle? To interfere with the legates. Whether or not they succeeded is a different sentence. But that was the reason that they started the battle, to interfere. So, all right. So that is purpose clause. Not too bad, hopefully. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for learning some Latin. I think everything is up on YouTube, but I might not have made it all public yet. And I know I have not updated my Twitch backlog, so I'll have to work on that soon. Next time we will do the subjunctive of characteristic or description. And the predicate accusative. Oh, fun things. Just all these constructions that really make it a real language. You can really sink your teeth into sentences now. And then we'll do some sentences, ablative of specification. Oh, gerund and gerundive. Ooh. That'd be fun to do that next week, but we might have to save it for 2 weeks because it's kind of a big subject. Anyway, we will stop for now. Thanks and have a good day.